It's projecting depth chart season. So let's predict the depth chart.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back in Locked On Bama, HSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him this episode. We appreciate you guys being here. We just do. You everydayers for being here every day. You newbies for being here today. And everybody for making us the first listen every single day. You guys are the absolute best. We're going to do some depth chart projection, courtesy of BOL, and have our own little spins and takes on that. We're also talking about the fit of Jalen Mbakwe at wide receiver, because we've had some folks ask us about that. They're like, why don't you do a mailbag? They tweeted us at it. I'm like, well, first of all, I don't think anybody's got mailbags anymore. I think we all just take it on Twitter. So that's what we're going to do, take it straight from Twitter. We will say just very quickly, of course, President Trump was at the university yesterday. We're not going to get into a big thing on it because it is way too polarizing. But I think he said something everybody can agree on here at Locked On Bama. He said, let's bring Nick Saban back. For the love of God, yes. I mean, I'm on board. Do that. Okay. So, let's talk depth chart. And BOL, we're going to go backwards of BOL. They did offense first, defense first, but I think the offense is a little more intriguing. So we'll go defense first. And they have, I'm going to run through the starters, and then you tell me afterwards where you think they may be screwing up. They may be missing out on somebody. They may be overestimating somebody, whatever. At Bandit, they have LT Overton. The defensive tackles are Keenan and James Smith. The Wolf is Russaw, which I think certainly. Inside linebackers, Deontay Lawson and Justin Jefferson, no-brainers. Cornerbacks, Damani Jackson and Xavier Brown. I might have some thoughts there. We'll see. Husky is Deshaun Jones. Safeties are Keon Sabb and Bray Hubbard. What do you think, Jimmy?
Charlie Potter puts that stuff together. He knows the team really well. There's really nothing on that would be wrong. I would just say in terms of a projection, I think Justin Jefferson is going to end up splitting snaps with Nakia Hill-Green. I think that they're going to kind of share that inside linebacker role. And you'll also see Hill-Green and Jefferson take some snaps from Lawson. Just like last year, they played three guys a lot inside: Jihad, Deontay Lawson, and Justin Jefferson. Those three played quite a bit. I think they'll have three again, with the third member being Nakia Hill-Green. And but I agree that Justin Jefferson might play the most snaps, or is certainly no worse than a co-starter. I don't see anything else that I thought would be incorrect at all in terms of who's the starter, just knowing that under Kane Womack, they're going to substitute quite a bit. It's not like the Saban era where really only the starters played. Womack does swap in and out at all the positions. Oh, yeah, we have a depth chart mute. It's a depth chart muting.
First team all mute. Okay. So I do want to say something. I do want to kind of correct something where I said Donald Trump said bring Nick Saban back. Of course I want Nick Saban back, but I want him back. Like, it doesn't mean I don't want Kalen DeBoer. So let's not start that. Okay. It doesn't mean that. Okay. It means that Nick Saban is the greatest coach of all time. And that's what that means. And that's all I was trying to say. Yes. So I was trying to look, see, this is what happens whenever you bring up anything remotely political. You start thinking like, oh my God, the other side's going to think that this, or this side's going to think this. And you're like, all I was trying to do was say something nice about Nick Saban. It wasn't an anti-Kalen DeBoer as much as it was Luke Robinson loves Nick Saban. Now, going back to cornerbacks, Damani Jackson and Xavier Brown, both awesome. Love them both. Husky, Deshaun Jones, big fan. I feel like Cam Calhoun's going to end up being, and maybe even Dijon Lee, and potentially Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. at Husky. I think all three of those guys are going to play starter minutes. So I'm not saying BOL is wrong because I don't think they are. What I'm saying is I think that if you had put projected starters as Damani Jackson, Xavier Brown, also Cameron Calhoun, and Dijon Lee, then I think you'd also be right.
Mm-hmm. I think they're going to play. I think all three of those guys will be off the bench, but will play significant minutes or snaps, as we'll call them in football. I can see Calhoun and Dijon Lee. Dijon Lee was actually ahead of Calhoun this spring. That was kind of a real shock to see Dijon Lee kind of out there with the ones more often than Cam Calhoun. I think they'll all play, but I think that Damani, Zabian, and Deshaun Jones are all pretty established. As starters. For instance, I would say based on how they played a year ago, I think Damani is likely headed for the first round in the NFL draft. That's what I think. Now PFF has him lower than that right now, but that's one that I would just predict is gonna go the other way. I think Damani will be a first round pick, and Xavier Brown may be even better than Damani. He's just a year younger and not draft eligible, thank goodness. But I think Xavier Brown is also a future first-round pick based on what we saw a year ago. Now, Deshaun, to show that I'm not just all rainbows and unicorns, Deshaun Jones is not a first-round pick. I don't even think he's a day 2 pick. But I do think he's a good football player. He's a good college football player. And I like, personally, having a Husky that's got good skills as a cover guy. Dre Kirkpatrick is his backup. Dre's more of a pure safety, not a cover guy. And kind of what Kane Womack more typically has at Husky over the years is someone like Dre. And they used, different guys there last year. But I like, Devontae Smith primarily, but who is a safety. But I like having a cover guy there like Deshaun. But he's not the prospect that Damani and Zabian are. But I agree with you that Calhoun, Dijon Lee, and Dre Kirkpatrick are all going to play significant number of snaps. It won't be like a backup situation that comes in the fourth quarter. No, they're going to play probably in the first quarter of most weeks.
Yeah, again, people may think this is one of those situations when we talk about offense, we'll talk more about this, but I am so high on Lee and Calhoun, and I've seen so little of them. And I'm high on them because I don't know their flaws yet. and that's unfair to the guys who have been there, because Xavier Brown's been awesome. In fact, some pro football something put out a video on Twitter about Xavier Brown is unbelievable. And they had a video from the LSU game about he did something great. And I was thinking, God, that guy's so good. And you sort of forget about him in the sense that you got, oh my God, Dijon Lee's coming in now. That's all anybody's been talking about. And then you talk about Damani Jackson. Shoot, I've really forgotten about him. And you forget how good the guys are you have because you're so intrigued by the guys you don't know anything about.
Right. Well, we hadn't seen Dijon and we hadn't seen Cam Calhoun at Alabama. Saw tape of him play college football, of course, at Utah, where he was a very significant player for the Utes last season. They're both good players based on what I saw this spring. They're not gonna be perfect. I think Dijon could potentially struggle when he is assigned to cover really quick receivers. Like, for instance, Derek Meadows probably is going to get shut down by Dijon, pretty good. But Alatzir Brooks might give him some issues, in terms of, Dijon is just so long with those long strides. I think those short, super quick guys might give him some issues. Cam Calhoun, if there is a flaw, and he looks pretty good, but I wonder how athletic he is compared to people like Damani, which is first round freak measurables. But hey, at Alabama, we often have first round cornerbacks. Is Cam Calhoun athletic like a first round cornerback? We're probably going to get to find out, because I think we'll see quite a bit of Cam Calhoun, and he had a really good year at Utah. Pro Football Focus does have him ranked right now amongst the top 200 draft prospects in the next draft. He's draft eligible. I know it's shot. He just got here, and it's just year 3 for him. But Cam Calhoun would be draft eligible.
Supply House. That's our sponsor for today. Appreciate you guys. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. That's Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 or more brands, you'll find exactly what you need, and it's delivered fast and from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. Join the Trade Master program. That's awesome. Join it today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's code SH5 at supplyhouse.Jimmy.
Com.
I hope people don't think it's .Jimmy.com. I don't think they do. Okay, so let's switch over to the offense, where Bama Online projected the offense just the other day, and I'm trying my best to pull it up, and here it is. At quarterback, shocker, Ty Simpson. I was on Locked On College Football yesterday with Spencer, and he was talking about Alabama's quarterback situation, and it's just so funny to talk to somebody who doesn't see it every day and talk about it every day. He's like, so, Ty Simpson, he just doesn't know much. And so it doesn't know much about him. I mean, because there's not a lot out there. And he was like, I get the sentiment that fans aren't super fired up about him. And I go, yeah, because we have seen him, the only thing we've got to see him do really was play some snaps against South Florida. And one thing I forgot about that came directly after the Texas loss. So the whole team's crestfallen. Of course, we sit Jalen Milroe, you hear rumors, but partially because my understanding that maybe it wasn't handled super great after the loss. And secondly, because I think the fans were like, we got to do something else. We got to blame somebody. We're not blaming Saban, so we got to blame the quarterback. That's how this works. Even though Jalen Milroe didn't have as bad a Texas game as people think. So we start, and it was also a monsoon. So the whole team was like, they felt like they were out of the playoff race. They felt like they were, being killed from every angle, including their own fan base. Their starting quarterback was just benched. Some people probably felt unjustifiably. And then we play like three quarterbacks against South Florida, and we end up winning like 17-3 or whatever it was. It wasn't pretty. It was just the ugliest game you've ever seen. But that's what we remember him from. I said, you either remember him from that game or you remember that he took off for about an 80-yard run against whoever, Middle Tennessee State, Mercer, whoever it was. And he does what players these days do that is just unquestionably the dumbest thing that you can do in football almost, and that's drop the ball before you cross the goal line. And I said, those are the things people remember. And I said, nobody's thinking like for a second, oh, maybe he's gotten better since then. Or maybe the team has accepted him more since South Florida. Maybe the attitude is better with the team. Maybe he's got a better coach now that he jives with a little bit more. And maybe that coach said, hey, don't drop the ball before the goal line anymore. Don't drop it till you get back to the sideline after the touchdown. It's just funny that everybody, including me, I mean, by the way, we've been really high on Keelan Russell and to some degree Austin Mack. And we have, but we don't know what the heck they're going to do when the lights come on. So we're almost like, we'd rather see the devil we don't know versus the devil we do. And frankly, the devil we think we do know, we don't know very well.
Well, the number one rule of fandom has been and always will be, the number one rule of being a fan is the player I have not seen is better than the one I have. I mean, that's just the number one rule. And that's not an Alabama thing. That's baseball, basketball, football, every sport, every team. That's how fans feel. They always want to see the next guy. Fans have already seen Ty Simpson play and found out that he's not John Elway. So let's move on to someone else. I mean, that's kind of how that works. Now, I don't really give. I give virtually zero credence to what happened against South Florida as relevant to anything that's going to happen with Ty this fall, in the sense that was year 2. Now he's in year 4. That's a dramatic difference in college football. Dramatic. He was a redshirt freshman game 2 back then. He was just simply not ready to play. And then that said, he actually wasn't that terrible. I mean, if you go back, he didn't throw 5 interceptions. He didn't fumble all the snaps. As a matter of fact, Alabama was in serious, grave concern of maybe losing the game until Ty came in and sort of saved it. Even though he wasn't ready to play, he did complete a really nice pass to a tight end in that game. I guess it was Dupree.
He was 5 of 9 for 73 yards in essentially a monsoon. And
with the weight of the world on him, I might add.
And boy, you brought up a great point. It seems like it happened yesterday. By the way, it seems like South Florida happened yesterday. It was 2 years ago. Do you think he hadn't grown in 2 years?
It was game 2 of his redshirt freshman year. I mean,
it's so dumb to say that now.
It's crazy that people use that game as a way to explain why they don't believe that Ty Simpson can possibly be good. I mean, that's a kind of a crazy assertion. The one thing about college football, and one of the many reasons I love it so much, is we're watching the players develop. It's not the NFL. They're not already done developing. They're developing as players. They show up just this clay, and they get molded over the time they're there. And most players improve year to year, sometimes making even big leaps forward. And especially now that Ty, for the first time, is going to get starter reps and play in the games, he could take a big leap forward. And the reason that Spencer and other national guys are sort of down on Ty is basically recency effect, and the fact that everyone knows that Keelan Russell's a 5-star, kind of a superstar type prospect. And we live in a world now where we're fascinated by these 18-year-olds that show up with the 5 stars, especially if they're quarterbacks. But what they don't remember, because if you quiz them on this, they'll have no recollection, Ty Simpson was also a 5-star quarterback. As a matter of fact, on 3 industry ranking, Ty Simpson was the #1 quarterback in the country. People don't remember that because that was 4 cycles ago. But I'm very excited about Ty. I'm very excited about Keelan Russell. And I think the #1 takeaway for Alabama fans at quarterback should be this: either Ty's going to be good, or we're going to get to see Keelan. And isn't both of those things exciting? And here's one last point. The worst take ever I saw somebody, the worst take basically came down and said, you know what would really stink? If Ty's really good and then he stays another year and we got to worry about Keelan leaving. Wait a minute. We're worried that Ty's going to be really good? This is a concern? Like, oh no, what if he's really good and wants to stay? I mean, I'm not commenting on it further from there, other than to say, I hope so. I hope he's really good, and I hope he's the projected #1 pick in the draft, and I hope he comes back. But
I mean, that is essentially like, oh no, I got a date with Jennifer Aniston, and I heard she might want to do some over the shirt stuff with me. I mean, oh no.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, yeah. Let's not panic about the players being good. Now, what if you could hypothetical out into something else and say, well, what if Ty's good enough to hold on to the job and doesn't want to leave, and he's not great? Well, you know what that is? That's competition. Then there will be a competition. If
you
Ty's,
know what that is? By the way, you know kind of what that is? That's kind of Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson in a sense.
Well, I would argue it depends. I would, if Ty finishes #6 in the Heisman and wins the SEC, then yeah, I think Ty will be the quarterback next year.
Oh, there's no
But see, Jalen did those things.
I know. You're right about that. All right, so let's go down a little bit more. Running back Jam Miller, duh. But I'll make a prediction. By the end of the year, we need to we will have another starter at running back.
Jam will be challenged. I agree this. I would put Jam number one right now, and Jam deserves the first carry in the first game. And I also think that there needs to be competition at that position. My prediction would be Jam holds on to the job. That's my a prediction. But I also there needs to be competition there, and we need to play the best back, whoever that happens to be. I'll predict it's Jam, but there needs to be competition there. There's several interesting candidates.
All right, the projected starters at receiver are, I mean, everybody probably knows them before I say them, Bernard, Williams, and Horton. Jimmy and I both love some of these other guys, like a Cole Adams, like a Jalen Hill, like a Lotzier Brooks, like a Bubba Hampton, like a Jalen Mbakwe, who we'll start off talking about in the next segment. And then tight end is Cuevas, but we have 32 other tight ends on the team, and anybody could be playing. Interior lineman, again, I love the only one that might surprise some people is Cam Dewberry. Jaden Roberts, Parker Brailsford are locks. I could see a Michael Carroll or a Allanen or even a Vandermark getting the start there. Cam Dewberry, though, I think has some experience. I'm fired up about him. I'm just saying I wouldn't put him in pin. And then you have Caden Proctor and Wilkin Formby. I think those two are pretty much locks too.
Yeah, Proctor and Formby are just set at tackle. Depth is a real concern there, but in terms of being starters, it's Proctor and Formby. There's no question. Brailsford, no question at center. Jaden Roberts, no question at right guard. Cam Dewberry, I agree with Charlie Potter, certainly leading at left guard based on what we saw this spring. But Vandermark is definitely in the conversation, as is some younger guys like Olas, Allanen, and even Big Mike Carroll. But Cam Dewberry probably leads. The good news for Alabama fans there is there's so many competitors for the spot. Someone should emerge and potentially knock Cam Dewberry off. I don't think he's solidified that, but probably the leader. I wouldn't say Charlie's wrong, because Charlie's never really wrong, but I would say at tight end, I would consider Danny Lewis and Josh Cuevas to be sort of co-starters, because really primarily they play two different spots, and sometimes you're in two tight end sets and they're both out there. Other times you just have the Y out there. That's more likely, I think, to be Danny than Josh, although we'll find out. But I would put Josh Cuevas as tight end 1A and Danny Lewis at tight end 1B. Wide receiver, we need to spend multiple segments on all summer talking about the very fact that I think all 10 receivers have a legitimate shot to be in the first team rotation, but you can't play 10. You cannot play 10.
Speaking of receivers, I did, again, because we had a Twitter/mailbox question about Jalen Mbakwe. When I look at the wide receiver depth chart, and you think it's like, 9 to 11 guys, I feel like Mbakwe's towards the end of that. And I hate saying it because I love the dude, and I think he is a gump. I know he got in the transfer portal for a hot minute, but I think he is a gump. I want him to play.
Did he get in the portal, or was he just potentially going in the portal?
I thought he actually got in. Did he not? Or look, there was a lot of talk about it. I can't remember. He might as well have been in it.
He might as well have been in it. There was clearly a negotiation to get him to stay. That was happening for sure.
But again, don't gauge gumpness by in the portal or not anymore, because everybody's going to use that as a leveraging tool. So don't worry about that. But I can't help but think right now he's pretty far down the depth chart. Now, I think again, an AHSA guy that I am, I know he's got the athleticism, but there is sort of a Jimmy John look like jack of all trades, master of none. Maybe that's what you worry about. But I'm hoping Jalen Mbakwe, I hope the light comes on. And if it does, I think he's hell on wheels.
Yeah, there's a lot to say. It was a great question from Twitter. Appreciate y'all bringing that up, you guys, because this is a fascinating topic. I'm not going to be critical of Jalen Mbakwe's decision. This was Mbakwe's decision. It has nothing to do with Alabama. It has nothing to do with Alabama going to Jalen saying you need to try offense. This is Jalen Mbakwe wanting to play offense, and in 2025, players play where they want to play, or they're going to play somewhere else, and he wanted to try offense. So with a 5-star level athlete like him, the only response is move him to offense. And can Jalen Mbakwe be a great wide receiver? I am nearly 100% convinced he can be a great wide receiver. We just have to remember a couple things here. He's a true freshman all over again. He was a true freshman last year. Now he's a true freshman all over again. And Mbakwe wasn't a wide receiver in high school. He really played quarterback most of the time when he was in high school. Learning to play wide receiver at this level, he is a true freshman all over again. And now competing with other true freshmen like Lotzier Brooks and Derek Meadows, who, guess what, have been wide receivers their whole lives. And Mbakwe's learning the spot while competing with them. And I agree with Ryan and Germ and Zay Horton clogging up the top of the depth chart. I don't know how much we're going to see of Bach this fall. It might not be a lot. And that's a little unfortunate just in the sense that I would also project, because it's only a prediction, based on the way he ended last year at cornerback, had he stayed at corner, even with the additions of Dijon Lee and Cam Calhoun, I think Bach would be the third corner because he was the third corner to end last season and I thought was playing really well. So I'll just say I think he'd be the third corner if he'd stayed on that side of the ball, but he wants to play receiver, and I think he's going to be a really good one. He's just a little crowded out, and he's got a lot to learn.
Yeah, and again, the best point of all there is if you want to make a dumb coaching move, that dumb coaching move would be taking Ryan Williams off the field for any reason, unless he's, struggling to catch his breath because you've been running him to death.
That's what we'll talk about all summer, because I know everybody wants to see these receivers and they want to play all 10 guys in the first team rotation. You play 10 guys in the first team rotation, you just knock Ryan Williams snaps from 55 down to 28.
Yeah, and I want his to be more like 75 versus 55. And
That's
I don't
right.
even know that we'll get 75 snaps. So, okay, walk-on profiling, Jimmy.
Yeah, real quick. Real quick today, Peyton Fox is a walk-on tight end. I want to mention Peyton because he's been a scout team player of the week, and he played in 2 games just last year. He is, and I'm sure Luke will get a big laugh out of this, a tight end. He is 6'4" and 250 pounds, but he's from Briarwood Christian in Birmingham. So we get a lot of Birmingham listeners probably familiar with Peyton and his high school exploits at Briarwood Christian. But anyway, he's such a good player. Again, a scout team player of the week, played in 2 games a year ago, and is a senior. So he's given Alabama 4 years, and now will be going into year 5. Another one just to mention, because, hey, it's fun for a couple of reasons. Walk-on quarterback, John Cooper. Cade Caruth is not the only walk-on quarterback. John Cooper is a walk-on quarterback from Mountain Brook, where we have so many Alabama fans and supporters. John Cooper was the quarterback there.
His dad, by the way, was an SAE with me. He's a friend of mine.
Excellent.
Dude. Excellent. Yeah, and he's I've seen him multiple times. Great player, and super happy to have him there.
Yeah, exactly. And he's going to help out the team on the practice field. He's sort of behind Caruth, of course, who's going into like year 3 as a walk-on quarterback at Alabama. So John Cooper just got there, and he's sort of learning the ropes. But Mountain Brook's a really good program, so he's well coached. I think he also spent some time with QB Country up there, and so he's well trained, ready to go, and appreciate all the walk-ons, especially the ones that are big Alabama fans. Obviously, John comes from an Alabama family.
There's no doubt about that. I can promise you. I remember sitting watching the 2015 Wisconsin game with his dad, and John happened to be where I was, and we all just sat there and had a big time. And he's Gumpish through and through. So, all right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back soon with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.